Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Tattoo Homewreckers, a podcast where we talk about tattoos, life, and everything in between. My name is Callista, and this is
Gaia.
And here we are, God, I am already jumbling my words.
We're going to talk about how to get clients. I had to look down at notes.
I know,
I don't
right?
know what's going on with this episode.
Yeah.
This is our second time recording this. The first time we were both exhausted, and when we did the testing of the episode,
Yes.
you could not hear us.
Right.
But we're going to talk about how to get clients and how to keep clients. And like always, if you guys have any feedback, if you're like, I think this is a great tip or trick, please send it in. If you send it in a voice memo, just let us know, hey, you can put it out there and then we'll air them because we are collecting these voice mails.
Absolutely, yeah.
But we're going to start off with what does marketing look like nowadays?
Right.
In
Absolutely.
the tattoo industry.
So marketing right now for the tattoo industry looks like a whole lot of time spent editing reels and just posting on either Instagram or Twitter or TikTok's a really big one right now. A lot of people get a huge following from TikTok. I actually am very guilty of not posting on TikTok just because I have my hands full with Instagram. But that's fine. So long as you're picking a platform to really reach out to clients too, that's great.
I don't even have a TikTok, so I would be useless there.
It's I have TikTok for funsies, and unfortunately it is one of those places, it's almost like Twitter, where I kind of just want to keep it that way. And I have posted a few tattoo stuff on TikTok, and tattoo homewrecker stuff is still on TikTok for you guys to watch whenever, which is great. But yeah, you got to pick a social media platform to kind of just pour out some, I guess, digital marketing.
Well, I think that in and of itself is a really good tip, which is find what platform you want to be with. Yeah. And stick with that platform.
No, exactly.
So that way you can excel rather than trying to do a million different platforms. Mm-hmm. I don't have a Twitter. I think technically speaking, I have a Twitter from I don't know, when it first was invented. Yeah. But I haven't been on it in at least 10 years.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it really just depends. I mean, obviously, the more platforms you are consistent on, the better off you'll be. But I absolutely get it. I'm guilty of, again, not posting tattoos on TikTok. I don't post tattoos on Twitter just because that's not the kind of audience I'm trying to build on Twitter. Mm-hmm. It's really just my diary to outwardly express to the world when I'm doing silly things.
It's so funny.
It's pretty silly.
I don't see her Twitter, but she reads her tweets to me every once in a while, and they are just chaos.
I feel very loved.
Hilarious.
Yeah, very loved. But yeah, pick a platform. I mean, a lot of tattoo artists, I feel like nowadays they worry about being a social media person. And here's the thing, you don't have to be a social media influencer or person or whatever that stigma is. Don't worry about it, because I honestly feel like social media is a tool. Mm-hmm. And if you use it to your benefit, especially when it comes to your tattoo career, you're going to thrive. You might as well use it, right?
Well, I think to kind of expand on that is that so many people get this idea of especially in the tattoo industry, I can only post tattoos and forget to just be who you are. Yeah. So I think for the month of December, I posted 2 tattoos. Right. I wasn't even photographing tattoos. I was I'd get done with the tattoo. I'm I love it. Bye.
No, exactly. And I get it. I totally get it, you guys. It is just another thing, another part of the job that I feel like a lot of people didn't realize they signed up for when they, came into the tattoo industry.
Especially in my case, that didn't exist at that point.
No, exactly. And so it's ever changing and ever evolving. And I'm excited and also nervous to see where it goes from here on, because editing reels takes time. And it's not just the editing that takes time. It's also the actual collecting of content that takes a lot of time.
I think that's the funny part is you watch all these different angles. Yeah. And unless somebody has an apprentice or an assistant to help them gather that artist is setting everything up, gloving up, tattooing, taking off their gloves.
Yeah. Adjusting the camera.
Making changes, gloving back up, tattooing, and you have to have clients that are also super patient with that to be hi, I'm going to keep stopping and changing these things.
Yeah, and keep recording every step of the way. A lot of people are down for it, which is great, but it's just a huge other mental, I guess, it's another chunk of labor emotionally, mentally, and actually physically. That,
yeah,
like,
well, and creatively.
And creative, yes.
Yeah, it's
yes.
like, I feel like a lot of people are trying to, like, follow trends. So when everyone was like, well, only post just your tattoos on your social media.
Right.
And then, like, I'm over here just like, fuck it. Y'all need to see my face anyway, and you need to know my, like, views on life, because God knows I'm not going to shut up about them during my tattoos.
Absolutely.
So you may as well just get to know me. And then it was like, all of a sudden, oh, well, if you show your face, you're going to get more, like, interaction.
Right.
And then, like, oh, well, if you do, like, a dance or, like, all these, like, comedic, like, reels that artists are doing, you'll get more following. But if it's not something that's coming from, like, an authentic place of joy from creating it, people can tell that shit.
Oh yeah, people can tell when it's I guess curated to take their money.
Yeah, when it's performative.
When it's performative, yeah, absolutely, which is another aspect of, I guess, marketing that we did want to touch on, and it's a big theme in this episode, is remaining authentic to yourself and to how you treat your clients. Because I mean, depending on, like, how you go about things, you don't want your client to go back and be like, yeah, so I met them at this, I don't know, convention, and they were super kind, really awesome, energetic, sweet, was just so cool. And then I get in there and they are the opposite. Like, it's like meeting a whole different person.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between, like, you know, sprucing it up for, like, you know, just like meeting people at conventions. Because, you know, whenever we're at conventions or events that require a lot of in-person marketing, we have to turn on our personalities and be energetic. However, that doesn't mean we're being inauthentic. When people still come in, we're still excited to see them.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think we're really good about explaining that to clients. That, like, I explain to clients, like, I'm going to be really quiet during line work, partly because I talk with my hands a lot. Yeah. And also, people reply with their hands a lot, and I can do much cleaner, faster line work if they're still. And then once I'm done with your line work, we can chat.
We're home free.
But I'm going to be super quiet during that time. And I tell them that so that way we don't have that awkwardness. And, like, part of, like, this stuff that I tell clients so that way they kind of be prepared. Like, I tend to essentially over explain things is because of years of, like, realizing, like, oh, that's awkward, or like having interactions at other businesses, which we'll get into customer service, kind of the tail end of this discussion, is through those awkward interactions. I was like, well, fuck, I don't like this. I wish someone would have explained this to me. And I'd rather dump too much information on someone and then be like, here you go, do with that what you will, than not give them enough information and just leave them feeling like helpless and confused. Right. But because, I think,
I mean, it is a huge, like, it's a very intimate process, you know, tattooing. And I feel like a lot of people forget that it's incredibly intimate and vulnerable as a client to go up and talk to a tattoo artist.
Yeah. Well, like, even when I'm looking at people's pages on social media, I want to see their faces. Like, that was one of the first things that, like, drew me to Mark Studios, was they had the ad in the movie theaters, and you got to see everyone's faces. And if I'm being quite frank, I don't think there are any tattoos shown in it. I don't recall. I know there are people tattooing. Yeah. But I don't recall anyone actually, like, showing pieces, any finished pieces. It wasn't just like a slideshow of work. It was just this, like, I don't know, it was very human centric. And I feel like that's the huge part of marketing that as an industry we're missing, is that people say, hey, this is all social media, so I'm going to zoom in on this piece so you can see the artwork of it, but you miss how it fits on someone's body. Right. Like, we're forgetting the human component of it, us being humans, and also our clients being human, to be like, hey, show them how things fit on the body. Show yourselves interacting with clients. Yes. And I think that's also where that draw for, like, the comedic artists come in, where they're, like, making fun of shit is because we then get to see their personality. And I think that that's, like, what's missing in a lot of marketing. And that's kind of like where we are as a studio, is kind of shifting our social media presence instead of just being like, here's tattoo, tattoo, tattoo. Right. Because, like, great, we all do awesome tattoos, but that's not what makes us special, like, as a crew. Yeah, at some point it does get it gets too sterile, you know. Yeah. Where, like, it's the same thing as, like, flipping through, I guess, a magazine, which is kind of what, I mean, why flip through a magazine on your phone when you could just go to a better profile and find a tattoo studio or a tattoo artist that has, like,
I don't know, attention grabbers, stuff that makes them different, stuff that makes them unique. They're funny, they're sassy, they're whatever. And it's vulnerable. Don't get me wrong. Like posting shit like that where like you're doing a skit or whatever, it's vulnerable, but it is so much fun to see.
So I find that really interesting because like when I first started, all advertisement was done like face to face. Like I think we had like a radio ad, but for the most part, it was like you hit every possible event you could hit.
Right.
So like, it's interesting to me because I think that's probably that generational difference is that for you, it's vulnerable to like put yourself out there. But for like my generation of artists, which is also something that's really funny because they reject this new like social media. A lot of them do.
Yeah.
Obviously not all of them, but a lot of them are like, I'm not putting myself out there. But it's like, but that's how you got your clients to begin with.
Oh, yeah.
You went to a bar and talked to people for hours, even if you were stone cold sober because you were trying to like build up clientele or any single chance you got, you talked to people about tattoos. And then you went to like events where, you know, we would go to Pride every year and all you did all day was vulnerability. You just put yourself out there, your true authentic self.
Yeah.
And said, well, I hope you like it.
Yeah.
And at least like with social media, I'm like, well, if you like it, awesome. If I get 10 likes, what the fuck ever. If I get 100 likes, okay, cool. But like, it's just that like authentically like showing up to be like, hey, this is me.
Right.
So I think that's really interesting how you're like, oh, it's like scary, but that's probably that difference is that like your generation has spent so much more time connecting with human beings through screens.
Yes.
Whereas my generation was like, well, you got to connect with them face to face.
1000%. Yeah. I'm really grateful for just the years of like food service that I worked before I ever got into my apprenticeship. And I talk about it a lot, but it was definitely like, I don't know, it was a big deal for me. It was a big growing part for me because as a young kid who, again, like that's how we were used to basically forming relationships with a lot of people is through social media. And that's how like my generation learned how to have like hard conversations and, you know, got information and just connected. And don't get me wrong, there is still connection. I mean, like in elementary school, obviously we didn't have smartphones or anything like that. So we were forced to play with each other and talk. But as young adults, a lot of the talking happened, a lot of the serious talks, I should say, happened via screen, which, I mean, there's some pros and cons.
Yeah.
Right? But the food service industry definitely forced me to put myself out there, especially in a customer service world where it's almost like a guard for me at that point. Like if it's under the guise of customer service, I will go ahead and put myself out there. But on personal life terms, on personal life terms, it is so hard for me to like go up to people and like talk to them. I love it when people come up to me and talk to me because then I'll just chat away. But like for me to make the first move, that's really, really hard.
Yeah. Whereas,
you know?
Yeah. I'm the opposite. Like if you come talk to me or I know it's terrifying. You're either
like,
way.
I'm good.
But if it's for work, absolutely.
If it's
but
for
I think
work, so
that's
easy.
also why, because I started work so young that I didn't realize until I was about 30 that all of my friends were like, no, you're really shy. And I'm like, I can't be shy. I'm like on it. And then Caboose like broke it down and was like, no, bitch, you're shy. And it took so long for me to be like, oh, that's what that is.
Yeah, because it's a safeguard. At that point, if it's for work, we'll do anything. You know what I mean? Like we will make it happen. And that's kind of that go-getter attitude that like, I guess separates a lot of good tattoo artists from great tattoo artists, right? Because great tattoo artists check all the boxes. So if you are a tattoo artist and you are familiar with the marketing, you already know it takes a lot of fucking work. On top of the hours of drawing that you're already doing, on top of the unpaid consultations, on top of the designs that never ended up working out, on top of the unfinished projects that people never came in to finish a whole sleeve or whatever, you know what I mean? Or gosh, it's just a lot. But if you're wanting to be a tattoo artist, like this episode is for you, to really just, I don't know, collect these pieces of knowledge and tools and get ready for the work that is going to be ahead of you. Yeah,
which I think now is that hybrid place of like needing, you still need those face-to-face. Because like we just did the hockey game last weekend for the studio because we're sponsoring the Reno hockey team.
Yeah, Reno Ice Raiders.
There you go. And the first night, you know, we didn't show up as ourselves. We set up as like how we thought the studio would want us to set up, and we're a very digital based studio, which we're kind of shifting away from that to have like actual like interactive elements at our booth. But the first night we didn't get a ton of people over there. And then the second night we just stripped the entire booth down and like did it in the format that we do.
Redid the entire thing.
Redid the entire thing. Made sure there wasn't a ton of people at the booth, because I think that first night we had 5 of us there.
Yeah.
And like people were sitting, and then we made it just a lot more how we like to approach booths, which is like people are standing, there's like interactive areas. So we had our portfolios out so people could flip through, as opposed to just the portfolios and the iPads. And I think that like now this new age of marketing is really about putting yourself out there on the digital platform, but still going out and meeting people.
Right.
Because the amount of people that then hit us up for contact request forms that following week was awesome.
Yeah, I got a wave of emails.
Hey,
yeah, which was great, phenomenal. I mean, it works.
Yeah, that's the point of it, and it's great too because you get to feel for your client as well. So, like as an artist, I love meeting someone, not just like, hey, you've submitted a form, you've done all of these like steps, and then you meet with them, and you're like, so I am not the correct artist for you, and the disappointment that comes on both sides of that. Whereas when you get to meet someone outside like the studio where it's a very formal, like we're doing your consultation, you get to actually like vibe check someone essentially to be like, yes, awesome, we fit, this is great.
Well, yeah.
And the nice thing about going out and marketing in that sense is that this is already your crowd. Like we know, we go to Pride, awesome.
Oh yeah, we're good.
It's great. Like we are super busy the whole day. And it's wonderful because you get to have genuine connections with people. And I think that's also one of the things it's an art that's being lost now.
Yeah.
Is the actual going out and interacting. And it doesn't mean, like you carry all the cards. You're the card carrying friend.
The business card friend.
Whereas like I don't like carrying cards because I don't carry a wallet. I just carry my debit card and driver's license. So I don't ever have cards on me.
Yeah.
But I'm the first person to be like, oh, what's your social media information?
Yep.
And I will like follow them and then have them follow me back. Because I too like to have a deeper connection with my clients, which means most of the people that follow me, most of the people that I follow on social media are my clients.
Right.
So that way you can build that connection with them. And I think that's like one of the things in marketing is like kind of sharing that time between face-to-face and online presence.
Yes.
Because if you do face-to-face, your people will forgive you if you're not consistent. Now, granted, I don't have, 20K in fucking followers. I think I've got like 2,000 followers. But they're real people that matter to me.
Yeah, that are attracted to, that are genuinely attracted to like your art style, but not just your art style, you as a person, which I guess like kind of leads us into like how to keep clients. And that's a major component of keeping clients. And I feel like that's a big thing that people also forget about is like, okay, so you got a client, right? How can you keep them?
Yeah.
How are you going to be able to keep them? And there is really only one answer for you. And again, it's like remaining authentic. You have to remain authentic toward, throughout the entire process. And that doesn't mean to say that you have to always be 100% peppy, happy to see them.
Oh, absolutely not.
No, at some point, we talk about it a lot. Finding a tattoo artist is like dating. And so when you are going steady with a tattoo artist, you know that there are going to be highs and lows and plateaus.
Yeah.
That's just how it is, right?
Yeah, you end up I've had to reschedule, and I don't know why this works this way, but there's always like a handful of clients in like a given time frame. Yeah. That you just end up having to reschedule with this one person like 4 times because like their life gets crazy, your life gets crazy, your dog gets sick on their appointment, they have COVID the next appointment. But because you build that like rapport with them to be like, hey, that's totally a-okay.
Right.
They don't expect you, you can come in and be like, dude, I'm so tired right now. And they know that you're still going to do stellar work. For sure. And by the end of the day, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I get paid to do this.
Yes. And I love those clients who are genuinely just like, yeah, no, I saw on your Instagram that you were just in Chicago or like you were just blah, blah, blah. How was that? And you can have a genuine conversation with them and be like, it wasn't good. I mean, I'm exhausted. I'm really tired. And they're like, oh no, that's too bad. And that's where the real magic happens is the fact that these people our clients actually like give a shit about us and we give a shit about them. And that's the thing. It's kind of funny talking about marketing and also stressing that like getting their money should be the last thing on your mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong. We tattoo for a living, but like people can tell, especially when it comes to marketing, people can tell when it is performative. So don't be performative.
Well, and the same with customer service.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You can tell when it's that fake thing. Mm-hmm. And I think that oftentimes people think that they're like, oh no, because I've worked with artists that, you know, to be honest, they were on cocaine, so they were always happy, but they come out just smiling every single time. And when you meet them for like 20 minutes or like for one tattoo, that's great. But then you see very quickly, like when you get to know this person that like, nah, dude, they're an asshole. They're just hitting a bump before they see you. So they're super high up. But then like the moment that wears off, they're a huge dick. And I think that, like, it matters showing up as, like, hey, this is who I am.
Yeah.
But also just genuinely giving a fuck and remembering that, like, especially for our industry, when your client comes in, they're scared.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Like, no matter how many tattoos, piercings, whatever, you have to be there to support them because, like, they're about to experience pain and it's nerve-wracking because, you know, we've got appointments set up for tattoos and piercings coming up. And both of us are like, ooh, this is going to be...
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Yeah, it is nerve-wracking. And that's, I mean, I'm glad that you brought in customer service because that is like a big part of, yeah, sure, that initial marketing, that initial first contact you have with a new client. And also has a huge, huge impact on keeping them is your customer service. And I feel like a lot of people forget that the tattoo industry, I mean, don't get me wrong, it is so... tempting in the sense that like, oh, it's an alternative lifestyle and you get to wear what you want, you get to act what you want, you get to say what you want, you get to do drugs, you get to do alcohol, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, sure, maybe behind the scenes you can do all of that after work, not during work. You shouldn't be doing those things during work hours. This is still a fucking job. And like, you know, I'm very big on, again, 50% of a dream job is still a fucking job. It can't always be dreamy. And so customer service is huge. It's huge.
Yeah. Well, I think like, and the number one thing for customer service is anticipating your clients' like needs and wants.
Yes.
And that's where it's like, hey, reminding yourself, like as a tattoo artist or like as a tattoo hopeful or whatever, and even as clients, like giving your artists feedback, giving your shops feedback, and as a person who works in the industry, asking for feedback to be like, hey, how can we make your experience better?
Yeah.
Like, what can we do to make sure that like this is more comfortable for you? And really like focusing on being client centric because then like, yeah, it's technically a sales position. It's a customer service sales position. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I am commission based. I work off of sales. But I am never thinking, hey, how do I like milk this tattoo? How do I get more money? For me, a lot of it comes down to just like, how can I give you the best possible piece? And that is it.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes that means, hey, your tiny idea that you wanted 17 things needs to be a sleeve in order to get your 17 things in there. And it's better to just have the whole thing done at one time for continuity's sake.
Right.
But explaining that to clients to be like, look, dude, I'm not trying to upsell you. Like, this might mean that you need to come back in a couple of years. This might mean that, like, I miss the opportunity of being your tattoo artist because right now you're not fiscally able to make this, like, step. Or because of a job, you don't want to bring it down on your lower arm. So, like, we can't do that at this point. But remembering that, like, the actual important person here is the client.
Absolutely.
And no, like that's within reason because I'm not going to do shit that I don't want to do. And I'm going to make sure that because I spend all day in like weird positions, I will put my client in a weird position so I can preserve my back so I have longevity. But also explaining that to them to be like, hey, look, like I'm going to have you sit like this so that way I don't throw out my back when I'm twisted in a funky position and I have to keep doing this all day long.
Yeah.
But I think that like we just forget that they're the ones that matter. And like I have a really good time with my clients So oftentimes I'm like, here's a tiny tattoo. And then by the time they're done, they're like, okay, so I'm thinking I want this and this and this. Mm-hmm. And also opening up that opportunity for them to talk about their future tattoos.
Absolutely.
And being honest with her, it's like, no, I might not be the best person for you. And sending them to other people that can do a better job. Because at the end of the day, they're what matters.
Yes.
And I think that our industry in particular is shit at that. Like, genuinely. Like, because you have that mentality of I can wear whatever the fuck I want, people come in dressed like slobs. And if you want to dress like a slob, I need to make sure that you are going to, like, if you're gonna wear sweatpants to work, I need your professionalism to be bumped up. Because otherwise, like, okay, so I'm at a fucking frat house.
Yeah, there's that give and take, you know, there's wiggle room. And like, that's, I mean, it is the beautiful thing about our industry, but it is very much a double-edged sword. Obviously, wear whatever the fuck you want. And like, sure, listen to us, don't listen to us. We're just letting you know that, like, if
people notice.
Yeah, people notice. And like, I think that's the big thing. People notice, and they still want, like, not only are we trying to focus on how can we do the best possible tattoo on you, but it's also like, how can we make your experience completely unique from everybody else that's going to offer, you know, a tattoo to you.
Well, and that's what allows people to like, wants them to keep coming back.
Right, yeah.
Is they're like, hey, I can't get this anywhere else. And so if you can't get that anywhere else, then you're like, yeah, I don't give a shit. I'll wait for this person. I'll pay more for this person.
Absolutely.
Whereas, like, you know, you have your, like, you know, turn and burn tattoo shops where it's like, okay, well, you can get the same tattoo everywhere. So why the fuck am I going to go to you?
Exactly.
And I think that, like, especially in the tattoo industry, is keeping in mind that their experience starts. Honestly, it starts the moment they look at your social media, they look at your marketing and all of that. So making sure that your marketing really enhances what it is that you offer that makes you special.
Right.
Which I think, like, we're lucky because we have the podcast. So clients listen to the podcast and they get to know us and they get to, like, hear how much we care. And it's partly why I will explain so much during consultations.
Yeah.
Because for me, education is a huge part of my life. Like,
Absolutely.
I love teaching. And so being able to educate every single person I can, even if they fucking aren't necessarily interested, and obviously you, like, read them and to be like, you don't fucking care. I'll just, like, keep this part short.
Oh, for sure.
But if they're interested, like, taking the time
to, like, really...
to have them understand, like, the entire healing process of a tattoo and the misunderstandings that are, like, circulating on the internet, so that way they don't fall into those trappings of, like, oh, no, this tattoo is going to fall out because of X, Y, and Z.
Right. I get a lot of people concerned about color. Like, fading faster, and that's still a very big myth in the industry. But yeah, I mean, read the room, obviously. Like, we all have our spiel. But make sure your spiel is different. Like, have it be unique, and also just remember that, like, dealing with clients, it is very much like stand-up comedy. You just have to be able to read and anticipate what they're going to ask or what they might need from you. And not all clients are created equally, you know what I mean? Where, like, everyone is going to have different needs and wants. And that's the beautiful thing about tattoos, is that they are all completely unique.
And there is an artist out there for every person.
Absolutely. And
so if you don't want, like, a customer service experience, if you like the dirty, nitty gritty, absolutely go to those shops.
Do it.
100%. And those people are crushing it. But then it's that, like, hey, how do we, you know, it's the whole thing of, like, when we had the recession in the early 2000s, a lot of tattoo shops closed. And then there were a couple that were doing things differently that stayed open. And as an industry, we should be elevating. We shouldn't be yelling at clients. We shouldn't tell people to fuck off. We should be, because tattoos are expensive and they are a luxury item, treat it like a luxury service.
Yeah, that's, like, well put.
That's the thing, you know, at our studio, and I'm not saying you have to be like our studio, but, like, having, like, snacks for your clients, having water, having coffee, offering to make them coffee, like, having comfort items. Like, we have blankets at our shop that get laundered after every client.
We have iPads with, like, Hulu and Netflix on them. Yeah, so that way if you do get bored and you don't have those streaming platforms, we have them for you. And we also have headphones. Yeah,
we have headphones. We have, and there's shops that you can go in and they have TVs and they'll tell you, like, all right, what do you want to watch? It's just like dentist's office. They're like, you have the TV here.
Here's the remote,
Yeah, and having that experience to be like, hey, what do I want when I'm getting tattooed? How can I then make that for my clients.
Right.
Because that's also where you say words that genuine, where you're like, no, I want to have like super loud music while I'm getting tattooed. Then you're going to play super loud music and you're going to attract those type of clients that are going to love that. But I think that's where like even as a whole shop, like as an individual artist, you can only do so much.
Right.
If you're working in, and I've worked in the wrong shop for me that I was there and I was like, this is cool. And then I realized that the culture wasn't what I was trying to like be a part of, where there was drugs and alcohol. And that's not my clients are not attracted to that. And like I myself am not attracted to that.
Right.
So like emulating what it is you want and remembering that like the important person is your client.
Absolutely. Client above all. Obviously, like you said, within the parameters of like what is possible in a tattoo and what is going to like last them, however many years. And all of that is very different depending on which artist you talk to, which is why, again, we stress that there is an artist out there for you, even if it's not us.
Yeah.
Which therefore means there are clients out there for you. Even if it's not just because you missed out on one client or 2 or 5 or 10, remain authentic. You will find your people. Yep. And the more you pour into people, the more people will pour into you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Are we missing anything else?
No, I think that's probably about it.
Yeah.
So now that we're talking about marketing, and customer service, we are going to do a preview at the end of this episode. So stay tuned, and we are going to play one of our favorite podcasts.
Yes. Life Nomadic Podcast by Brandon Collins.
He was on our podcast and then we were on his, and we've like shared his, but in case you haven't gone over and listened, we're going to do the first like 10 minutes or so and
just give you a sample.
Yeah, just give you a little sample and then to listen to the rest of the episode. I'm getting mush mouth over here. Then you will have to go over to his page. Yep. The link will be in the description, like always. And then you can listen to the rest of it. And we do have 2 episodes on his. And it's
good.
So good. They're so good. We talk about mental health because that's his primary focus.
Yeah.
Mental health in the industry. We talk about sexism. We talk about masturbation.
We talk about everything.
Everything.
We cover all our bases.
Yeah. Enjoy our little preview. And then don't forget to go over to his page. Like, subscribe, follow all the shit that like you're supposed to do, that we're supposed to tell you to do.
He's a wonderful person. He's worth it.
He is, yeah. You'll love him. And his voice is just, it's so comforting. Yeah, you'll love it.
All right.
So we will see you back next week with a really fun, silly episode where we are going to ask each other about movies.
Great. I'm excited.
Yeah.
We have very different tastes in movies.
We do.
All right. Well, without further ado,
yes,
here's Brandon's episode.
And here's Brandon's episode. Bye.
You are listening to the Life Nomadic Podcast, a podcast of inspiration, life lessons, philosophy, honesty, stories from the road, and, well, whatever the hell else I want to talk about. I'm your host, Brandon Collins. So let's get weird. All right. Well, welcome back to the Life Nomadic Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Collins. Thanks for checking me out. Thanks for coming in and listening. Today I have a very, very special episode. I have 2 incredible humans that I get to do this podcast with. Gaia and Callie from Tattoo Homewreckers. They are tattooers at Marked Studios in Reno, Nevada. And we're going to have a quick conversation. So, yeah. Say hi, ladies.
Hi. Thanks for having
everyone.
us.
Yeah, thanks for letting me take in your space. So we're currently in their house, in their studio. It's a bit weird, but we took the wall down, so now I can see them. I'm happy about that.
We're just on opposite ends of the table.
Yeah.
Yes.
It feels like those old like royal tables where like the king and like everyone's sitting all the way and you're having a conversation with somebody at the very, very end of the table.
Yes, literally.
So I can hear you, but they could also say stuff about me that I can't hear them. So I'm watching
whisper.
Yeah, whisper. Yeah, so today, I don't know. We have lots of stuff to talk about, I guess.
We do. Many things to chat.
First, I do want to, so anyone who's been listening to this podcast for however long, all 3 episodes or 4 episodes before this, is mental health is very, very important to me. And I want anyone who's listening to kind of feel the same way. And I want to break the stigma of mental health. I want people to start looking and treating mental health like they do their physical health, or how they should treat their physical health. And so, yeah, we're just going to have a conversation about that. What do you guys think?
A good chat. I think obviously mental health is so important because you live in your brain and your brain is you. So if you don't take care of that, it definitely affects, and this goes for non-tattooers as well. It'll affect your work life and your personal life and your personal relationship with yourself. And speaking as someone who has struggled with like mental health stuff, as everyone has,
yeah,
you have to stay on top of it.
Yeah,
huge thing, huge thing. And our career is something very special where our everyday choices affect other people permanently. So we can only do as good as our brain allows us to be.
Right.
We allow ourselves to be.
Yeah. I think that mental health and physical health are truly connected. So for me, like, part of keeping my mental health is also staying on top of my body. Because especially like the longer you tattoo, the more it essentially breaks down your body. So like my hips hurt, my back hurts, and my shoulders hurt in different ways. And if you don't work on that physical side along with that mental side, then you end up in this place of just like perpetual chronic pain.
Right.
And that I was reading an interesting study yesterday, and it was discussing that connection between like essentially childhood trauma and chronic pain in adults. How your brain connects the two. So like you can have people that do have chronic pain, but are able to essentially address it differently because of their approach, their mental approach to it.
Right. Was it the Body Remembers? Is that what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that book's great.
Yeah. The Body Keeps Score.
The Body Keeps Score. Yeah, that's what it is.
That book is fucking nuts.
Yeah.
It's a hard one to get through too.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, I'm not even halfway through. I think I made it to chapter 5, and like I have to take like solid breaks between each, like Some of that shit hits real close to home. It's intense.
Yeah.
It's intense, but yeah.
Yeah, I've been dealing with chronic back pain for probably on and off for like 4 or 5 years. And I've been through every path, right? I've been through physical therapy. I've been through chiropractic. I've been, I'm a weightlifter. I even went the psychological like route, and nothing is working. And so it's really frustrating. And sometimes it won't be the pain that makes me get really upset. It's the frustration of not knowing what's wrong with me. And I'll be in tears some days just because I just don't understand why my back hurts, and I don't understand why nothing's helping it. And so for me, that kind of feels like what people who deal with mental stress and mental disorders, when it's like everyone around you is fine. Why am I the one that's like messed up? Why is my mind weird, or why is my brain quote unquote broken? And so that frustration is only exacerbated by the fact that there's a stigma behind it, right? Like if somebody tells you that they have cancer or they have a kidney stone or whatever physical ailment, you're like, oh, okay, that sucks. And you can kind of whatever. But then someone says, I've been diagnosed with ADD or PTSD or anything, those other things. And it's almost like, oh, you're like broken or whatever. And one of my passions is to stop that, so that if someone opens up to you about something that's going on with them, you treat it as if they sprained their ankle. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be any different. It's the same thing. It's the same body. It blows my mind that we have a different like view on that.
I think that's where I especially really lucky, because I am in my mid 30s, but then doing life with somebody who is in their like early 20s, mid 20s, because it's one of those things that her generation is truly doing right, that any sort of like mental health things, they are very vocal about it.
Yeah.
And it's like you were saying with your back, I think there's a place for, having that answer. Like, I didn't realize that, like, I had ADHD up until probably about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was through watching, like, as stupid as it sounds, through watching TikToks and seeing memes and being like, holy shit, this is the best way to explain my brain, where I would be super frustrated by people to be like, why can you not remember the exact placement of where you put the scissors 4 months ago when my brain can pull it up like that? Yeah. But I also cannot remember someone's name for the life of me. And I would get really frustrated. And then when I started watching all this stuff, and I was hesitant at first to identify as like, okay, well, I have ADHD because I've never been formally diagnosed. But then being like, you know what? I know my brain, and the more research I do on it, the more I'm like, thank you so much for giving me more tools to understand my brain, that I don't necessarily need to go to a doctor. It's the same thing. Like, yeah, I have a hip impingement, but I've had that since I was born, and it took till the age of 30 before a doctor would diagnose it.
Yeah.
So instead of like waiting on that official diagnosis, her generation is really good at being like, hey, these are the things I'm suffering with, and you don't end up in this weird place of not having answers.
Yeah.
Because totally. I think there is that. Whereas like, yeah, our generation and even older than this, there is a huge stigma around it.
Yeah.
So then there's a lot of shame. There's also just that gender divide as well, that like for men, mental health problems are massive. So having somebody of your like stature speaking about it, I think is so vital for allowing tattoo artists to recognize that. Because for me, I'm very vocal about like any of my struggles. Like I went through like a suicidal thing a couple months ago, or maybe a month ago. And the moment I started to come back down, I instantly was like, okay, we need to talk about this on our podcast, because we need to talk about this like issue within tattooing. Right. And having to be, like she said, be on all the time with our jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's important to, I'm in recovery. I've been in recovery for 16 years, and there's a stigma with that as well. There's a lot of shame that comes along with addiction. They're both mental disorders. And I'm a huge proponent of being vocal about it, because the more people hear about it, the more normal it becomes, the more it gets normalized. And then someone who's like, oh, and like you said, you're looking at TikTok videos. You're like, oh, I'm not the only one. Like, there's other people who are going through this. And that, just knowing that alone helps so much.
Absolutely.
You don't feel alone. You don't feel ostracized. And even if your family is doing that, you do realize, and you do know that there's another family that's going through the same thing, and that has your back. And I think it's the same thing with ADHD and any of those other things. And I really love how you brought up that point about how the younger generation is more vocal about it. And man, you are so right. My generation, our generation, and the generations before, it was all about picking up, your bootstraps, and you got to work hard and do the things. And then this next generation is more like, they're more in tune with their emotions and their feelings and things like that. And there's a little bit of pushback from the older generation, because they're like, oh, you're just a whiny baby, or you're just complaining, or you're not really broken, you're just lazy, all these kinds of things. And it's because they don't understand.